Looks like most folks have joined. So welcome. Good afternoon, good morning from wherever you're joining from. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day. This is our September webinar for our Complete College America Accelerator community. My name is Jonathan Gowin. I am one of our Alliance Engagement Directors with Complete College America. And I'm really happy to be bringing some folks in, some close CCA partners and longtime allies and experts of ours to speak on our topic of digital learning and information technology. In particular, we've got a session that's going to hone in on AI. And today we have with us Karen Vignare from the Association of Public Land-Grant Universities and Vistasp Karbhari, professor at the University of Texas at Arlington, who also have the distinction of being co-chairs of our Council on AI Work at CCA. So really excited to hear from them and all of their good work. So please feel free to ask questions in the chat as well, and I will turn it over to Karen and Vistasp. Thank you.
This is the one part we didn't decide on. Do you want to go first and introduce us?
Why don't you do that?
Okay. Hi, everybody. Happy to be here. Karen Vignare, currently serving as Vice President for Digital Transformation and Student Success at the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities. I had the distinct pleasure of joining the AI Council when it first formed well over 2 years ago. And my colleague and I have agreed to step up to be co-chairs, and we're having a lot of fun most of the time, really trying to synthesize things that the AI Council can bring to the wider community for CCA.
Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are geographically, although that shouldn't make a difference because we are virtual. So my name is Vistasp Karbhari. I'm a faculty member at the University of Texas at Arlington. I have the honor of serving with Karen as co-chair of the AI Council. Just to let you know, the AI Council was formed so that we could bring together the expertise that exists from various experts in various disciplines so that it can be brought towards a focus on student success, that we could talk about AI with that very specific lens in place, and talk about things that could be done, should be done, and are being done. With that, let me sort of start this out. Feel free to add your questions in the chats, your comments in the chats. We will try to look at them as we're going forward, but we'll also take the questions at the end. When we talk about AI, we're going to be focusing not in general on AI for everything, but AI in higher education. And as you know, just as background, we are in an environment right now where there is a lot of discussion about the value of higher education, the challenges before us, whether we're truly keeping the promise that we make to our students, whether there are things that we can do better, whether we can make sure that our students are going to be prepared for the workplace and the workforce into which they will be graduating, and whether we're actually doing everything to integrate the tremendously changing knowledge base that exists today. We are all aware that the education enterprise today is extremely complex. We live in an information and technology world where there's more information and knowledge being created every day than was created in past decades over the same period of time. We've been stuck on a mode of teaching, which is focused on the sage on the stage rather than one of active learning. We complain about the fact that our students are not prepared and that they need more skills in critical thinking, yet our educational system is built around the fact that they listen and they regurgitate. We have this growing chasm between jobs that are available and students who graduate without being able to get a job because there is a difference in which they have been prepared and the specialties needed or the skills needed for them to succeed. We have a tremendous amount of academic knowledge that is being given to our students, but the academic knowledge very often does not match with the skills and the knowledge that they need to hit the ground running and to have success in the workforce from day one. All of this brings together a number of challenges that we need to keep in mind. We've all heard about AI. We've all heard about the dangers of AI. We've all heard about how AI is going to change things for the better. But there is no doubt that AI is tremendously accelerating changes in the workplace. We have sectors such as computer science, where if you went through a traditional degree where you did a lot of coding, today you may not be able to find the same type of job as you would have 2 or 3 years ago. The impact of AI in the workplace is changing what the workplace looks at completely. And in some cases, it's driving a fear that there is going to be a bloodbath and there will be no jobs available because the robots will take over the world. The truth actually is somewhere in between. We have no doubt changed and we continue to change the way we are working. Rather than work in a field where we have knowledge that is actually constrained and where we sit with hundreds and hundreds of people working together, we are in an environment now where we can have AI actually assist, support, enhance, and do a lot of what other people would have taken years to do. It's not replacing people, it's enhancing what people do. It's not taking away jobs, it's redefining what the jobs would be. But there's no doubt that AI is changing what the workplace is, and that makes it very important for us to understand how we need to prepare our students for this workplace of the future. And in doing that, how we need to prepare ourselves as faculty, staff, and administrators to be able to do the right things by our students. I'm sure you all have spent a lot of time talking about the digital divide and about digital transformation. Well, when you talk about the digital divide and you put on top of it artificial intelligence, it actually magnifies the impact of the digital divide. Think about AI as being Google on steroids. Somebody can basically get all the knowledge that you want in a certain field at the click of a button and be able to collate and even be able to put that into categories so that some of the thinking can be done for them. However, just as with any technology, it is a GIGO technology, garbage in, garbage out. And therefore, we need to make sure that our students are not only literate in the use of AI, but can actually have full access to it, can understand what they're doing with AI. And when I say students, that means all of us as well, because we cannot do the best that we need to do for our students if we don't understand it. It changes the convenience and the scope of learning as well. It changes our learning experiences. It can allow us to build in curricular, co-curricular, and external influences all together so that we can give the students far more than what they would have got if we were to constrain them to geographical co-location. It makes the fact that we have a lot of courses that are obsolete by its very nature because we take so long to update our courses. With AI, it is possible for us to update far quicker and therefore have our students have the relevant information and therefore be able to hit the ground running. With the convergence of AI, AR, VR, and XR, we can actually allow our students to learn by doing so that they are prepared not just with an equation or a single what-if case, but have that experience in context so that they can actually do things and be prepared for a very fast-changing workplace.
Oops, we both did it. Okay, Vistasp and I are doing something new. Zoom just updated permissions and privileges so that multiple presenters could advance and move slides at the same time. So please forgive us if we move each other's slides the wrong way. I wanted to move back a little bit because I did put in the chat. Please feel free to ask any questions. And if there's anything that you want to share in terms of comments about the presentation, please do that as well. We did allow time for questions at the end, but we do want to engage the audience during the entire presentation. So continuing how Vistasp had laid out the groundwork, I mean, one of the things that we really want to share is while this is moving at quite a fast speed, it is not completely new for us, right? Like education has had to innovate quite a bit over its history, and we've historically done that well. We are now in a fast-paced, changing of a situation where we are both creating knowledge at a faster pace than we ever have, and we are disseminating that knowledge. And I think I really want to hone in a little bit, since all of you are interested in this subject, what Vistasp said about us being the student as well, because in order to lead our universities and our colleges into this age, we have to be using these tools ourselves in order to have familiarity and in order to have some comfort as to, again, back to the point he's already made, that jobs will just simply be lost if I use the tools. Well, I think that is true if we don't use the tools at all. But I think what's going to happen while we disseminate the knowledge, we're going to become much more capable of doing things we haven't been able to do in the past. And that's exciting, right? Like many of you, like me, are bogged down by paperwork, right? And we're going to shift from that kind of paperwork to being able to do the human-centered creation. We're going to shift from bringing those students on campus to enabling learner access wherever they need it, right? But that means for us as universities that we are able to reach out to, because we have the infrastructure and the tools to do that. And we're going to shift from being the sole researcher working with a tool, an AI tool, to one where we can work in this collaborative environment like we have right now, and we're synchronous at the same time. I think these are super exciting ways of starting to think about how we shift to that. So just in a few pictures, and I do want to acknowledge the fact that Vistasp is really good at AI graphics in terms of creation. The excitement for the types of learning and the types of engagement that we can do is pretty intense, right? And it does feel a bit like overload, but if we get to think of all the students we haven't helped, I hate to be that person, but quite frankly, you all are here because you're exceptional and interested in student success. But as an industry, we fail more students than we help succeed. So we need to think about the opportunity to do better. And some of these are having different ways of helping students study, having the personal tutor that they haven't had before. Some students really want, like, think about our gamers, right? Want that immersive learning experience, right? They also would love to hear from an expert, even if that expert has long passed. So it's an exciting opportunity to be thinking about how we can really enhance. It still means the curriculum and how we assess it needs to have that subject matter expertise, but how we deliver it and how we engage the student gets so much more exciting, I think, for them and for most of us, right? Because there's so many times you've been in a classroom, you've wanted to do more, and you just simply can't do it. And here's where I think most of you are. I'm making some assumptions that many of you are not faculty, but this is so exciting. And I just told you about, my paperwork, right? Like, I've already got my team working on, can you create an AI contract agent? Because I need something that can immediately whip up tools if I happen to be lucky and get a new grant, right? So I'm looking at a way of processing tools and using AI agents that can enhance our operations. So I get to do things like, think creatively, spend more time with people like you doing cross collaboration work, right? And I think for many of us, we've already seen it in some of our institutions with plan operations. I know as many as 5 years ago. I was on campus where the little robots are delivering packages and food to students, right? It's really exciting if we think about these kinds of enhancement. I'll do another one. Like the scheduling issues have overwhelmed us, right? And we need to be able to think about how we schedule and what happens when the student says, I can't make that class. Are we ready to flip for a digital environment for that student? Because we should be able to do that, right? I don't really want to bring up the dreaded pandemic example. I'd much rather operate on just a single student. And then there are concerns and challenges, right? We have to think about how has the data been trained, right? That's a lot where we get the bias. That's a lot where we get the privacy issues. And we have to think about what is the humanness in here, right? Like, what is the overdependence on AI? Right now, we have students. I mean, we're recruiting people. We can see that they're only using AI to create a cover letter. Not a good move, right? Like you need to still be able to use the tool, but if you can't look and see if that tool is delivering the message that aligns to the ask, that's a problem. And it's a problem for all of us as we try to do this work and moving forward. Uh, um, and I'm still not seeing anything in the chat. So I do want to encourage that we get back to asking each other questions. I've now forgotten. Is this one yours or mine?
Yep, it's mine.
Okay.
So when we start talking about the use of AI, and I'm sure all of you have lots of questions. Some of you are already using AI. Some of you are at institutions where AI is a fact, and there are committees and their policies and their frameworks. And some of you are at institutions where some people are using AI, some people are saying, thou shalt never use AI, let's ban AI, and others that are trying to use AI. So the question comes up, how do we even begin? What are the foundation stones on which we have to build the use of AI in an educational institution, especially keeping in mind the centeredness of our students? So if we look at it from that perspective, there are three basic pillars that we should be looking at. The first is that we ground the use of it in ethical and learner-centered design. That means that we start out with our basic principles. We all have basic principles built into the missions of our universities. Things we know we will do and we will not do. AI should not be changing that. We should have those ethical principles. We should have those basic principles. We should have those operative sort of imperatives. Those need to guide the use of our use of AI. Unlike other things, unlike other technology that has been used before, AI does not exist in a vacuum and AI cannot be used in a silo. Therefore, if we're trying to use AI on our campuses, we must make sure that there is collaboration. AI cannot be done by a president just saying, there shall be AI tomorrow, or one faculty member saying, I'm going to use AI, and the other faculty member saying, I'm going to ban AI. It confuses our students, and actually a lot of our students are going through this right now, where we have syllabi where one faculty member has said, here are the rules by which you should use AI. Cite it, give me the prompts, tell me what you're using. Another faculty member says, if you ever use AI, I'm going to report you for academic dishonesty, and you will go through the entire academic process of being thrown out. When we try to use AI, we have to collaborate. We have to collaborate across the entire institution. That means we want to get people talking about it. We want to get people understanding how we're going to use AI without these silos. We know that there are a large number of AI tools that are available there. You can use ChatGPT, you can use Gemini, you can use Copilot. In fact, a lot of us are probably using AI and not even recognizing that we have AI. For example, if we use our cell phones, we've been using AI for years and years. For those of you who've been using autocorrect and grammatical stuff on your text, we've been using AI, but now we've gone to a much higher level. So we need to have that discussion. We need to discuss what is it that we're aiming for? How are we going to help our students? And therefore, we also need to focus, why are we looking at AI? Are we looking at AI just to make something faster? Are we looking at AI just to make something that can be done in half an hour, make it happen in 2 minutes? If so, I think we're looking at the wrong thing. We need to look at AI as how can we transform things? How can we do things that would not have been possible before? I'll give you a simple example. I'm sure all of us would like to be able to advise students or to assist students or to tutor students at the point when the student wants that help, whether it is at 2 o'clock in the morning or it is at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The challenge is that even if we are dedicated advisors and dedicated faculty members and dedicated tutors, we can only help so many students at a certain point in time. Physical location becomes a challenge. The amount of attention we can give a student becomes a challenge. The way in which we explain a problem to a student becomes a challenge. With AI, all of those could be transformed. We could actually have the information given to the student as, when, and how the student needs it, rather than for the student to have to wait a few hours or maybe even a few weeks before they get the answer. So from my perspective, when we look at AI, the basic pillars we should be looking at is principles and ethics, the focus on the students, making sure we're integrated across the campus so we're not sending mixed messages or driving a student nuts in terms of what they can do in one case and they can't do in another case. We also need to make sure that we're focusing on how we transform the educational experience for our students rather than just making it easier for ourselves, which also tells us something very simple that we need to keep in mind in our basic pillars. If we use AI and then we tell our students, thou shalt not use AI, we're sending a very bad message. And so many of us do that, where we send automatic emails to our students written by AI, and they know that it's done by AI. And then we tell them AI is bad and thou shalt not use it. So we need to come up with a very specific way in which we're going to go forward. When we talk about AI, there are about 4 levels of AI. I'll go through the first, and then Karen will go through the next 3. But we have to remember, this is a technology, it's not a person. Let's not anthropomorphize it and say AI did something right or AI did something wrong, because AI did none of those. It's what we have programmed into it or what we are asking it, what we are using it for. But the first level of AI is whether we actually have access to technology and tools. Remember, we talked about the digital divide and we saw what happened during COVID. We had assumed that everyone has broadband access. And guess what? We suddenly found that so many of our students did not. We thought that everyone had the power to be able to upload and download at the levels that they could. We found that they couldn't. So we need at our first level access to the technology and tools. And access doesn't just mean it's available. It also means it has to be affordable for all our campuses. It has to be adoptable. It's not just something that you get as a black box and you throw it in, but it doesn't do what you want for the preparation of our students for success in the workforce. The way in which we do things at an R1 university is going to be different from the way we do things at a regional university, from that's a community college. They're all focused on student success, but the methodologies that we use are different and they're successful. So let's not destroy that. We need to make sure then that everything that we've talked about in terms of digital transformation and digital access is hyped one level higher. We need to make sure that when we have these platforms, we have the appropriate ones, and then we have the tools that our students and faculty, staff, and students can use.
My thoughts, sorry. And with that, I do want to acknowledge that on the CCA website, there are some resources. The page for the AI Council is still being updated, and that will probably be refreshed and come back. But when Vistasp was talking about the affordability and access, we've actually done some documentation around a framework on how you think through that. And hopefully that's helpful to you. And if we think about level 2, here is something that's happening lots of demand around our students getting more work experience, or that we value the work experience they bring to us. So access to training and expertise with AI, and how we actually include that into our curricula becomes something that we can do more of, right? When we think about that. And so that training goes both ways, right? Like it goes for students to get training towards a career, but it also goes for students to learn from more experts coming back. So there is an opportunity to think about that level 2, and the co-collaboration amongst both, I would say, faculty and staff, along with a wider world in terms of the things that you guys are being approached with, like the vendors and the collaborators out there that are just going a mile a minute in terms of moving AI forward, and how is that going to integrate for us? I think the next level that we really have been thinking about is, what is the access to resources to attain AI literacy? And we think this is really important for educators to be thinking about for our students, because there is an expectation growing, certainly with very big companies already, retraining and upskilling. But even though not all of our students will go to those big companies, it won't be long before both mid-sized, small companies and nonprofit and government will also be expecting students to come out with AI literacy, so that they can analyze, they can develop, they are not afraid to create, right? And we think those should be somewhat transparent rather than just in a black box, right? A lot of code is currently written, or vendors have code that we don't know exactly what it's doing. So we think there's a real need to push around the AI literacy and the ethical use and transparent use of that, those kinds of tools. And we have to think about that within platform integration, and we have to think about that within data governance. And when we think about AI, I think I do want to drill in a little bit on the data governance side. AI is about data, and it's going to give us a lot more data. So if our data governance has not truly been set because we don't have enough data that is easily accessible to us, we have to start thinking about that now. We have to start thinking about how we govern that access, how we share that data, how we make it usable. And then really something I think all of us feel very proud of, and that is when our students do graduate. And again, I was the person who reminded you, we're still failing way too many students, but those students who actually get a degree, we are enabling socioeconomic mobility, and we're going to think about those as opportunities for all learners. Like many of our learners are community college students that average age are coming in around 29, right? They don't have that same opportunity as an 18-year-old coming out of high school. They often have to balance many different things, but we have to think about how are we going to enable that they are not only getting that degree, but that degree is going to be useful for their social economic mobility. So we have to think again about those issues around bias and copyright and the things that help support the development of policies, right? And we have to be ready to move on these discussions and learn and iterate, right? Like AI is not just coming at us once, guys. It is moving so fast that something that was introduced 6 months ago is totally new already. That's how fast we're moving, and it's not a speed that we're very comfortable with. So we're going to have to think about what that means for all of us. And then I think, oh, you're adding to the discussion. So we really do want to spend some time thinking about the ethical concern related to the use of AI, and it's been something that the AI Council has spent a lot of time on. But I want you to think of that as a consideration, not like a point of blocking us, right? Like iteration, the practice of iteration is really something we have to get better at. And so we have to think about what do we know? What are the intentional biases, right? And how has it been trained? How do we change that? How do we make sure it gets trained on other things, right? So we have to move forward in terms of thinking about ethical concerns as a no-go. We're not moving until it moves. Instead of thinking we need to use it to figure out what it's not doing for us and what it's not representing about our students and about who they are, what we know, so that we add that to the base of the AI's tools that we are using. And I think this is.
So when we talk about AI, then we have to look at it from a variety of perspectives. The first perspective we should be focusing on is not ourselves. We should be looking at it from the perspective of our students, from learners everywhere. Do we actually give them the opportunity to have access to the same tools? Or are some going to be using a very limited version of a platform and others have the full version of the platform where they can gain far more experience? What is the balance? We've already talked about digital literacy and the increase that comes through AI, but let's talk about personalization and automation. We use the word personalization a lot. What we should be talking about is individualization. This is not putting a new name on an email such that everyone feels that the email or the text is going only to them. This is being able to take a student where they are and changing the way in which we send them knowledge or allow them to access knowledge so that it fits within their frame of reference. From a student's perspective, it's very important that what we give them fits within what they want to do and what they understand. A student who hasn't had the first course in calculus, if they're given a differential equation and they're just asked to just learn it, we're not helping them. With the use of AI, what we could be doing is individualizing it so that we can actually give them the background information first and then take them up through a scaffold step by step. We also know that we have a lot of historical bias. For example, if we look at nursing and if we looked at data from nursing from 20 years ago, we would have said that most males should not be nurses. And if you look at AI, that's probably what it's going to tell you as well. It's a historical bias because of the way that data existed. We also have a lack of focus on individual situations. And we've seen this so often that we've done it even without AI when we admit students that we forget about the human drive, the motivation, the character of a human to do something different. And we have to build that in and make sure that our students do not suffer because of that. Performance data. We'd like to use digital analytics to figure out what can be done, how it can be done, when to get a student more help. But we have to make sure that we don't use that same data in the wrong way. There is a lot of data that can be brought to the forefront to help a student, but there is a point beyond that threshold where we're going into privacy aspects. Students may not want the rest of the world to know that they happen to have a learning disability. And if we're sharing it across the board because we've now found out through an AI tool that they do have one, perhaps we're doing something that a student may not want anyone to know. For example, I'm highly dyslexic. I also have a stammer. Now, I can't hide the stammer, but I can hide the dyslexia. I would have hated it if all my faculty knew that I was dyslexic. And yet, an AI tool can tell me I'm dyslexic straight away. That's the sort of information that may be useful, but you might want to make sure that it is shared only under restricted conditions. We can have biogenetic markers and data that show, according to models that exist today, that there is a propensity for success under certain conditions and not under others, which may not be true. We have large data breaches and protections against unauthorized access. We have to be more and more aware from a learner perspective that these are of great concern. we have to look at the perspective of faculty and staff as well. And this is where we tend to forget it. We say we need AI to be taught to all our students, and we forget that our faculty and staff are students too. They may actually be AI immigrants and visitors versus AI natives, which is what our students are. Our students have probably gone far further into the use of AI than our faculty and staff have. So we need to make sure that as we go forward, we provide training and professional development and support. But we need to change from that assembly line focus on students to a one-on-one with teachers. And I know every single faculty member does it very well. The challenge we have is as institutions, we have an assembly line focus. We assume that all students come in with the same background at the same time and have the same outcomes. A single individual faculty member parses that and makes it different. We want to make sure with AI that we allow the faculty member that agency to continue to do that and to take individualized decisions. We can obviously rely overly on technology and we lose agency. We don't take decisions, we let a computer program take a decision. That would be wrong if we cannot explain it. And we want to make sure that when there's assessment, that we don't overly use the assessment that comes from an automated tool, or even worse than that, we basically say, because we have a tool that's going to help you in your work, let's give you more work to do now, so that we don't keep in mind that the use of new technology also places added workload to our students. This is something that's very important as we look at AI. And some of the most common complaints that we have with AI are, AI is going to completely result in everyone cheating. AI is going to completely result in everyone losing critical thinking abilities. The reality, however, is AI does none of that. What AI has done is brought to the forefront things that were already happening. It is actually exemplified and shown that these things were happening. And now if we don't change the way we teach, we are actually doing the wrong things. When we start using automated grading and we don't have faculty engagement in it, we lose that contact between the faculty member and the student. Automation completely can actually decrease critical thinking skills, but we don't teach critical thinking. AI can actually help us in putting a student into the context and allowing the student to work through that context. There are obviously going to be concerns about algorithmic bias in terms of language and context in terms of how it is graded. So let me give you a simple example again, and I'll look to myself as the example. So I grew up in India. I came from a British background, which means I spell things in a slightly different way. A color is C-O-L-O-U-R rather than C-O-L-O-R. Fiber is F-I-B-R-E rather than F-I-B-E-R. If I used an AI grader, I would probably get very low marks because I'd be also using grammar where I use a significant use of commas where otherwise we don't. So we have to be very careful in terms of the ethical concerns that comes in terms of how we do it, how we grade, and our lack of personalized feedback. We should make sure that what we're trying to do is use AI to enhance the engagement with students rather than decrease it. A faculty member might be able to work with 10 students in a day. Now the faculty member can work with 100 students in a day, providing that personalized assessment to those who need it immediately, and then tomorrow working on some others. But we need to make sure that we have agency, the decision-making that is taken by the faculty member and the professional judgment maintained while we're using technology. AI is a technology, it's a tool, and we need to make sure that as we go forward, we use that tool in the right way.
So we also need to think about you, because most of you fall into this category of administrators, right? And what are your roles at helping us become a better institution by using AI? And I think there's a couple of things that become really important, and that is what is the policy implementation? And again, keep in mind what we've said multiple times now, right? The lack of a framework creates scenarios where students are facing AI being used and AI not being used, right? So thinking about how we're going to create a framework that encourages use of AI, and also says that what we know is that AI will still make mistakes, right? And we have to think about that process and the challenges of helping our faculty become better at using it, the challenges of helping us become better at using it. And, here's the unfortunate reality. All of us are facing less and less availability of funding. And it's getting unlikely that many of us will see a lot more colleagues, right? So we have to think about how do we use our time better and use tools that will help us reduce the need around increased costs, right? And of course, there is a balance here. Usually when we're first thinking about the use of tools, that they're increasing cost. But the goal is to think about as we gain experience, what is the cost reduction? What are we aiming to get rid of in terms of workload? What are we aiming to think about in terms of doing things, right? One of the things that I can easily point to is many of us have great services on campus. They're often underutilized, right? That's all part of the cost and resource, right? So the balance I've already talked about in terms of innovation and control, but making sure we ensure that equitable access amongst populations, but also helpfulness around that policy, that training. And then I think the most important part as administrators is really thinking about how we do this transparently with everybody, right? So the other thing we kind of talked about a little bit is that AI is very, very capable of giving you so much data and bringing to life the data that you already have, right? So we need to think about how we use that data to figure out things differently. And when I say that, right? Identifications of students at risk. We often know too late that a student is at risk. What is the way of knowing that we might do an outreach, right? We might do a nudge. We might serve up some of the things that we have around tutoring, right? But on the opposite side of that, what is the balance between learning struggle, right? And thinking about no outreach, right? So these are not easy questions, by the way. We want to make sure you understand these are ones that we struggle with as well, right? And then we have to really think about with AI, we're getting a lot of, chatbots and AI coding that we can use in order to support students. We have to think a lot about whether or not we're unfairly labeling students, whether or not the support innovations are the critical ones, but also personalized to our students' need. But it's really exciting to sort of think about these things, right? It shouldn't be just a challenge to think about that. I think we're back to you, right?
Nope, it's still you.
Oh, sorry. Again, apologies. And so as we dug deeper at the last slide, we were thinking about ethics and accountability. And we want to just kind of, as we start to end this conversation with you, which I hopefully you will continue to engage with us, think about bias, fairness, transparency, right? And the bias is both the intentional and the unintended, right? It has to do with where the data comes from, and it has to do with how the algorithms are created, right? And it's up to us to do that testing in bias, to not just assume the tools are no good, right? And we also have to think about how are we going to make sure there's fairness in that work. And I've already said transparent many, many times, so I think we can move on from that one. And then there's another level of accountability and that is traceability, explainability, and those are, do we know where things are coming from, right? Like, can we explain that? This is true for our students too. If they're going out in the workforce, right? Like, and we want them to use these tools, they're going to need to tell other people how they use the tools to do their job better, how they connect with that, right? And responsibility and accountability, it is about being human still. These are tools, they are not humans replacing us. So we need to really think about what is the chain of responsibility that we're using. And we need to think about how robust these tools, what's the operating environment for them? Do we have, and most of us don't yet, right? An environment where we can actually use these tools well, and we can think about what keeps us safe from harm, right? So those are important things to move us forward, and we think about ethics and accountability.
So when we start looking at AI and we start developing frameworks and policies for our institutions, what do we have to do? We have to make sure that when we do something at an institution level, it's broad because it's going to be used in different ways by different people. It's going to depend on our mission and our principles and our organizational culture. There are cultures where we want to make sure that there's a lot of hands-on individual contact, and we want to maintain that because that's the engagement that makes sure that our students succeed. There are others where we know that can be enhanced with the use of tools, but we have to provide guardrails as well. AI is not infallible. It depends on the data that we put into it, and it depends on the programming that we do with it. And therefore, we need to put guidelines into it, and we need to put our guardrails on how we will use AI. We need to make sure that this is also at another level. After we have the institutional level guidelines at the broadest level, we need to go down into the division. The way that AI is used in engineering might be very different from the way that AI is used in the humanities or AI is used in art. In fact, there may be things that one of the divisions would say is great, which another division might actually say raises ethical concerns. If you look at paintings and how we can change them and modify them by AI, that might be of great concern for an art department, whereas in engineering, it may not have the same sort of stature because we're not dealing with art. We're dealing with maybe sketches that can just come about as the precursor to a design. Therefore, the norms that we have within a discipline need to be part of those policies. And we have to provide the same autonomy that we've had before, the flexibility that a faculty member or a staff member can use based on their own decision making and allows them to be innovative, allows them to engage with different students in different ways, but also accelerates the use of technology as we go forward. So if we look at it, and if anyone's wondering, how do we go forward with AI? We have to start with ethical standards, develop a framework under which we're going to work at an institution. Don't use AI just to make it more efficient. Anything that can be done in 10 minutes, we're going to do in one. Try to see how you can stretch it, how you can actually transform things. But while doing that, we need to emphasize data privacy, transparency in what we're doing and how we're doing it. And then we want to make sure that we assure human agency as well. We need to make sure that what we're doing is that AI tools supplement and support faculty and staff, not replace them. The biggest concern we have is if we're going to use AI, we are going to lose our jobs. That's not true. What we want to make sure is that we are adding to it. We can enhance it. Bias needs to be assessed continuously and mitigated, which means that those continuous loops that we have in everything we do is the same for AI. Faculty and staff training and support is critical. In doing all this, however, there have been a lot of successes, and Karen will walk you through a few of those successes that already exist.
Yeah, so we wanted to leave you with a couple of things, and you may have heard about these, but when we were showing you the types of learning, there's already been 10 years of experience with things like IBM Watson and code, that's open source code that has been created to help be a virtual teaching assistant, right? And the name is the Joe Watson. There is a ton of research out there. And if you want to look at it, you can look at the AI, the NSF AI and Adult Online Learning project. It is pretty fascinating how students respond, and they respond relatively positive to the opportunity to meet and work with a virtual assistant and get that information. Georgia State has been well known for what it's done in advising and the creation around chatbots from the enrollment to the academic support, right? Like they had a huge summer melt problem because they were a high access institution, right? And that meant students weren't as likely to be engaged. Often this is true for many access. So how do you get them to actually stay engaged once they've made a commitment with you? And a lot of their work has been with outside vendors. I mean, people are thinking about doing these things themselves, but I do think you have to do a cost benefit analysis. It could be, in order to keep the tool base and the code base alive and relevant, it makes a lot more sense for you to work with a vendor than it does to create it yourself. Arizona State is unique because they are dedicated to innovation, but some of their work around courseware and a lot of this they share willingly at presentation. They have multiple conversations. They host people on campus. Has really been about providing tools for students because we know that the student needs practice, and these kind of adaptive tools really practice, but it also gives faculty an opportunity to co-design in different ways, right? And it's integrated into, the AI is starting to be integrated into the LMS so that students can think about getting the questions they need in order to move forward. It's really exciting to see what they're doing in terms of personalized learning pathways, where they now have a lot more tools for students to think about what is their career, what is their degree, and how are they going to use it, and how do they experiment with that. And I think those are kind of a couple of things. I think we're going to end with the things that we think about are really critical is you need leadership. And leadership doesn't mean you have to be the best technical person in the room. It has to mean that you have to convene people, that you have to talk about the opportunity to serve more students and to serve your students better and to do other things. We have to think about what that means in terms of cultural readiness, right? What we need to do to think about change management and how we enable that kind of thing. And I really like this collaboration part, right? Because I think much of our workload is often very individual and myopic. I think when we can use the tools to do a lot of that kind of workload, we get an opportunity to spend more time in collaboration, innovation. We can think about how it helps us plan, how it helps us develop resources and strategies, right? And how we think about getting feedback on what we're doing. This iteration process is going to be a little bit tough for us, right? I think we do well with trying to make changes, but not necessarily the iteration that needs constant feedback. And I think we've talked a lot about accountability, transparency, and human agency, how important each of us are in this transition. And I can't focus enough, given CCA and what its background and all the work that you all do. We are focused on student success. We want more student success, and these tools are going to allow us to do that. So we have to be engaged in the opportunity to use those tools. And I think we can find a new path for higher ed's future. And I think we can all be excited about what that looks like. We did want to leave you with our information, and feel free to contact us. You are a very quiet bunch, but hopefully this is something that was useful for you. And I know Jonathan recorded it, so I'm sure that's going to be available to you. But please, outreach is welcome. And we will be at the CCA convening. If you are there, feel free to say hi. There will be some sessions that the CCA AI Council are also hosting that will be within the schedule that you can look up as well.
Thank you so much, Karen and Vistasp. I know we are right at the top of the hour, and so I want to say a major thank you to everyone who was able to stick around. I know some folks dropped off, but we will be distributing the recording to the community at large. But thank you once again, Karen and Vistasp. Really appreciate your time and all of your insights.
Our pleasure, and I'm glad to stay on if there are people who'd like to ask questions. I know we went a little bit over, but if there are people still on who have questions, I'd welcome the chance to basically respond.
No way. Very, very informative and very useful. Excellent work. I do have to pop off to get to my next one, but I will say again, thank you both so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.